So yeah, got some awesome people who have come in to spend their evening on a Wednesday to share their experiences with GA4. We've also got a chair, so Christy has also been part of Data and Analytics Wednesdays for quite a long time. She's a principal consultant at Criticality, Mad Sydney Swans fan. She's also seen a lot of like great and bad and all in between implementations of analytics. So she's going to have some really great questions for the guys up here. But yeah, I might hand it over and let her get started. And we have some.
Hi everyone, my name is Christy. So we are here to talk about GA4, and we all, I'm sure, enjoyed Simon Rumble's discussion around GA4, sort of the good, the bad, the ugly. We have some really, really good experts here today, and I've got a bunch of questions. I might follow the script or I might not, Josh, just letting you know. So what I'll do is I will ask everyone to just quickly introduce themselves, and then we're just going to jump straight into questions. So firstly, we have Tariq, who is Data and Analytics Director at Jellyfish. Can you introduce yourself, Tariq?
Hey, hi everybody. My name is Tariq. Data Analytics at Hello? It's working now. Hi everyone. So I'm Tariq, Data Analytics Director from Jellyfish, based in Sydney. I used to be based in Dubai before, moved to Australia about last year. I've actually spoken on one of these events before. It was a long time ago, so always excited to be back. And that's me.
Excellent. Thanks, Tariq. And now we have Juan, who was former manager of digital insights at UTS.
I was. I'm on a career break at the moment. Yay for me. But I was at UTS for the best part of 19 years. And I'm here. I'm not as expert as these lovely gentlemen, I would say, but we just recently rolled out GA4 from a GA3 implementation with agency help. And as Simon said, we have a lot of platforms we needed to tag up and roll it across. So that was a really interesting journey that's still ongoing. So I have a real life experience and a lot of grey hair.
And next up we have Jonathon, who is from XPON, is that right? Technologies?
Cool. Hi everyone. So I'm John. I like to call myself just a software engineer at XPON. So I've worked with a couple of enterprise clients across their J4 migrations. And yeah, good to be here.
Excellent. And finally, we have Jason Lamb, Data and Tech Advisor at Civic Data.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason. I have probably about 8 years experience working with Google Analytics. And it's probably not my last transition project. I've been around from transitioning classic GA to Universal and now Universal GA4. So yeah, a lot of implementation work, transitioning, good fun.
Excellent. All right. So I think one of the things that we might follow on from Simon's discussion is maybe talk about what's one of your favorite or what you're most excited about in the new GA4, and also what you're most upset about that is not currently there. So you can take both those questions or either those questions. Tariq, I'll start with you.
So where do we begin? So in terms of what's actually good about the platform is the data model kind of makes sense. I mean, the most challenging bit about like Universal Analytics was the fact that the main measurement unit was always the hit, which kind of modeled the sessions and then finally the user. With GA4, of course, it's all about the event. And as a result, you just have a sequence of events which can tie together a user journey, which in most cases makes a lot more sense. However, as a result of that, it's also more challenging because coming from a UA world, everything was modeled based off the session, even the most important KPI for most people, which is the conversion rate. Given the fact that GA4 is now based on events, and we've lost kind of the session visibility, sessions do still exist, but it's more of a calculated attribute rather than an absolute one in GA4. Hence, one of the things you'll notice in the GA4 UI is there is in fact no conversion rate. Which is again infuriating, but it kind of makes sense because they were modeled off sessions. But yeah, in terms of what is missing and what we would really like to see, I mean, where do we even begin? It's Simon gave a pretty comprehensive list. One thing that I do get from my clients very, very often is the ability to customize the custom channel groupings, because that's frankly one of the most commonly used features in universal analytics. Everybody has campaigns on Facebook or on multiple other social channels or any other medium, and the ability to group them together and report on them, have meaningful insights is like.
Tariq, do you want to give a bit more information? Maybe not everyone's across what that means and what you might have done before and what you can't do now.
Yeah, sure. So basically, let's say you have your campaigns which are either running on Facebook, or some of them are on Instagram, and you have some others running on display, several media channels. So you have the ability, let's say that both Facebook and Snapchat or any of the other social channels should be grouped under one category. Let's say you're trying to report the conversions as well as the conversion rate according to the mediums. Now, you can either look at a separate medium for Snapchat, separate medium for Facebook, separate for Instagram. You should also be able to kind of like group them together under one medium that's more convenient, so you can report on the profit metrics for that platform. That's a lot easier to do if you have the ability to group certain channels together. It seems like a no-brainer, right? This is a basic feature that should exist. However, the ability to customize the channel groupings beyond what's already set within the platform is not currently doable within GA4.
All right, thanks, Tariq. I'm interested in Juan's experience in this because you've been on that GA journey. Can you give us a bit of an idea about what you were excited about and what you were maybe frustrated about?
I can tell you why we decided to go for GA4. Knowing that GA3, they're not investing much more into it. We knew we had to go. You're all told now you have to go or you have to explore something else. One good thing, it's free. We've been on GA3, the free version, for 20 years. So the business know it, they're comfortable with it, the interface better, the learning curve quicker than Adobe Analytics. Also, Adobe Analytics costs money. So GA4 free has more features than GA3 and some of the enterprise stuff that we wanted. So we'd been thinking we'd go enterprise, but that's a lot of money. We're talking like 150 US, 150,000. Yeah, 3 zeros at the end of that. So we thought, well, if we can transition, if we can go to GA4, get the extra things. So things like BigQuery in there, you've got the AI, ML stuff that you can model off as well. That was tempting for us. No sampling with the sessions that we're getting and the hits wasn't an issue for where I was. So all of those things gave us more than what we already had, and it was still free. So we're running in parallel. And that's good because it hasn't really hit the business yet. When I got into it, we're looking at this thing going, this is very, very different. Can I get a sense who here is business side, client side, trying to figure out how much do we freak out? And then we have agency side. And then we have never heard of it, never heard of GA kind of. Yeah, so we have, I'm more on business side, and we have a lot of people who use it at a very basic level. So that's the space we're in. We're not advanced, and when we need advanced help, we get in agencies to help us because we need to manage the stakeholder side. It's changing. How do we manage that change? And that's, I guess, the space that I was looking at. And I've been in there for the good part of 10 years. And that learning curve I felt was it was a long learning curve. So then to switch to something that's quite different, it is a shock to the system. But the more you get in there, you need time. You need time, the team needs time, and you need training. You can't just let them go loose in that. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's been our experience. We know we have to go. There's definitely good parts, free being the big one. If you have money to invest, definitely go to market. But we're in a different position here.
Great, thank you. So John, with your experience with your clients, what's the response been with clients? Like, have they come to you and said, hey, we need to do this, or are you going to them? And how are they feeling about the change?
Yes, I guess it depends. So we have clients on all over the spectrum. So those ones that are really quite mature and more enterprise level, they are already looking ahead to and saying like, we need to be ready for GA4 now so that we have a longer look back window. Some other not so prepared clients, they kind of rushing now, and it's basically went from the bottom of their backlog to the top as a priority item. And I guess it just really depends on the organization and their digital maturity. And then, so in terms of like things, what I like about GA4 is, as Tariq said, was the event model. Like just because, so a lot of our clients, they have app and web, and it's really handy for that basically event model to be more flexible and consistent across the app and web, because instead of just defining what it looks like on web, you can basically do it for web and app at the same time, and it saves a lot of developer resources. And usually these clients, they're pretty constrained in terms of the developer resources, because, you know, anything that's a product feature, you know, they always have time for it. Anything that's analytics, it goes to the bottom of the pile.
I know that very well.
Yeah. And then things like what we miss about in GA4. So I actually saw this morning, I think, it's like conversion rate is back in the release notes. So they got user and session-based conversion rate, which is good. But definitely a big limitation at the moment, I guess, is the high cardinality that Simon has mentioned. Just because with that high cardinality, it doesn't actually affect the data that you're capturing. So in your BQ export, you still have all, you know, those unique values available. It's just that Google hasn't actually, the way that they visualize the UI. So like they still have the data available. It's just that how they present it to the end user is something that I'd like to see them change.
Yeah, so if we go to the cardinality problem, and I've seen the same thing, you know, it's other is number 4 or 5 in a report, and then you're trying to explain what other is. And, you know, obviously your clients are just not interested as to why it's like that. So have you come up with any ways, John, of like around that, any ideas, or is it because for me to go and tell them, I'll just use BigQuery, that is not an option, right? Like it isn't. So I'm interested in how you've dealt with that.
First sensor, BigQ, so you just took that away. But there are some sort of workarounds. So some creative ways of working around it at the moment. What we've done is, so in GTM, if we actually push the data into J4, we kind of redact like higher cardinality values, and then you can store that high cardinality value like in a custom dimension, which you won't access, but you can still have available in J4 or BQ. You can also have like a more cleaned URL as your page path, but then you store the actual original page URL in the custom dimension. So you still have that. You're not losing the data. It's just that the way it's presented in J4, it's a lot cleaner.
Oh, great. That's a really, really good tip. And Jason, so my understanding is you're all about privacy, security, that sort of stuff.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, that's civic data. So what are you most excited about with GA4 in that space?
With GA4 specifically,
Or not?
probably nothing really. If anything, like the whole process of getting GA4 up and running is like, particularly with GA3, all of our clients that we're working on right now is in a position where they'll need to transition their analytics across to GA4, being one option, or the other option is look at alternatives. So you see right now, like with Europe, for example, as Simon mentioned, like the European Union's been hammering Google with fines and all that because of like non-privacy compliant data, methods of data capture. And something that you could use this opportunity now is evaluate what else is out there. And something that we're looking at as part of Civic Data is alternate analytics platforms. And one that sticks to my mind is Tariq Pro. We've deployed it for a couple of clients now as like a side implementation in addition to Google Analytics and GA4. One of the things I like about Tariq Pro is that it retains a lot of the classic GA experience as an alternative. So it is like one avenue you can go to if you really want to. If you're stuck in that classic GA mindset like I am, unfortunately, it's something that's a lot easier to adapt into. But of course, probably one of the main challenges is that Tariq Pro is a lot more unknown than like a Google Analytics or an Adobe Analytics.
So have you had any success in selling that into large enterprises?
Not at the moment, no. But it's one of the discussion items that we usually have.
And is that resistance because it's unknown? I think, the old saying was no one ever got fired for hiring IBM. I'm showing my age here, right? So it's kind of one of those things like, well, no one got fired for using Google Analytics kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much. Yeah.
Great. So I'm interested, Tariq, with your work with your clients. How have you gone about getting people up to speed with using the reports? And I don't want to hate on the reports too much, but I do agree with Simon, the out-of-the-box ones are not great. That scatter plot should just be banned and taken off. So just a heads up, that is a terrible, terrible graph that shouldn't be there. Someone's got their hand up. Are you a fan of the scatter plot? Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Pro, is that paid?
You can run it for free as well. But there's also like a paid offering as well.
Did you run the free one? But you considered your turn?
Yeah.
Of course.
What was I talking about? Oh, my hatred of the scatter plot, but I'll let that go because I can talk about that for a very, very long time. But yeah, I'm interested, Tariq, in how you've gone about getting your clients used to the new reports.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Simon put it very, very, very succinctly, the reports are crap. And I think it's GA, the Google team actually even aware of that. So they actually, instead of the 100 or so plus reports you got in Universal Analytics, you only have 20 now. As if Google know that you're not going to be actually using any of the candidate reports. So they expect you to use either BigQuery or one of the other features I actually like in GA4 is the exploration. So the exploration is previously known as advanced analysis, is actually a nicer way to kind of slice and dice your reports. And one of the things we've done with our clients is get them to use and experiment a bit with that, especially play with how you can take some of the custom dimensions, take some of the metrics that they're most interested to see. And it's actually a kind of logical evolution of the custom report feature in UA, just a lot more better in terms of the user interface. It's actually one of the only areas in GA4 that's actually better from a UI perspective than the custom reports look like in Universal Analytics. So that's kind of how I got my clients' feet wet with the reporting in GA4, and with the caveat that, hey, better reports are coming.
So have you found that you are building those reports for your clients, or are you teaching them so they can self-serve? And then, sorry, the second part to the question is, if they are self-serving, which type of people are able to do that? Because I know it's not necessarily everybody who uses the data has the ability to build those reports.
Absolutely. So we do train our customers, and especially it's the marketing teams who find this most useful. So we kind of, the trainings that we provide are linked to audience segmentation. So for example, the questions are, how do I target certain segments of people? Maybe I'm running a Facebook campaign. I want to target these people and give them some sort of a personalized message. So we start there and show them how to actually build segments. From segments, then we show them which metrics are better suited towards those segments. And then we help them develop these explorations a bit more. So that's how we get them more interested. And then we do give them some assignments as well to like take away and experiment a bit more. And then we meet again, maybe after a few days or after a week, and review what they've learned so far. So that's kind of been a good way to get them more excited about the platform, and also gets them to investigate and look into the tool a bit more.
Cool, thanks. And I think, John, I probably have a similar question for you and your clients. Are you seeing clients build their own reports? Are they going into BigQuery? Are they using Data Studio? What are you seeing with GA4 compared to current GA?
So I guess the rule of thumb for reporting in GA4 is try standard reporting first, which is the best. And then if that doesn't work, you use your Explorer reports. If that doesn't work, try Data Studio, and then BigQuery is your final source of truth. So something important to note about the standard report is, I guess, a lot of things about GA4, it's about tailored reporting. So not, one type of reporting might not be suitable for one organization in comparison to another. So which is why I think is one of the reasons that Google has kind of decided to like skimp on the standard reports. But definitely the Explorer reports are quite powerful. So we've had clients and like within that organization, there could be like analysts or product managers. They've actually gone in to Explorer reports just because it's quite powerful. The ways you can, for example, You can create, cohort segments to see how you overlap and what people are actually doing from a behavioral, as opposed to like, are they just making a, purchase in this particular session? Another really important thing about Explorer reports, which is really good in GA4 in comparison to UA, is in Universal Analytics, your goals, if you want them to be funnels, they are not retrospective. While in Explorer in GA4, you can make as many ad hoc goals funnels, which is really powerful.
Do you want to talk through, does everyone understand that? Maybe John, do you want to just talk through that in a bit more detail? Because I think that is a really, really good part of GA4.
Sure. So in Universal Analytics, you got this thing called goals, which is basically you specify what a particular conversion on your website or app. Let's just say website for this particular one. And then you can basically build like a funnel where you specify the steps in your funnel. So for example, URL A, B, C, D, and then they make a purchase. And then it creates this really beautiful funnel visualizations, which tells you how many people go through the funnel as well as exit at what particular URLs. So our big limitation with Universal Analytics is basically for those funnels, they're not retrospective. So basically, when you configure a funnel, it only applies to your future data. You can't actually go back and see what's happened in the past weeks of data, just because that funnel hasn't been configured. And then in contrast, GA4, it's retrospective. So you can basically dynamically and on an ad hoc basis define your different steps and then create basically as many funnels as you want.
Great, excellent. So question for one, implementation. When you were moving, did you decide to change the way it was implemented? So were you using a tag manager like GTM? Were you looking at server side? What were the steps that you went through to evaluate that?
So we were pretty lucky in that we had a recent update of our GA3. So we implemented a data layer with an agency. And that was only 2 years old. And we left it relatively untouched because we loved it too much. We didn't want to ruin it. So then by the time we hit GA4, GTM, we rolled that out in that GA3 version. So it was across most of all our platforms already. So we were really lucky. We had most of the stakeholders internally already on board. So we did all that change work 2 years ago. And now it's, hey guys, we're upgrading, but much more palatable to the business rather than, hey, there's a full re-implementation of a different thing that you don't know anything about. So it's GTM for us and on many of our websites. So the university has many websites. And so, how do you track all of those? And many teams on many different platforms as well. So you've got different dev teams trying to fit your rollout into their cycle of work. So that also challenging, as Simon mentioned. So yeah, it was pretty much the same for us. We kept it the same. But I think if it's been a while since you've had to go back to GA, you kind of gonna need to do some work again internally to, I guess, build trust and confidence if you don't think you already have that, I would say.
So Jason, question around sort of the implementation side and companies moving to server side. You've got Facebook at the moment who won't stop banging on about their conversions API at the moment to any advertiser. So is this something when you work with your clients, you talk to them around the implementation side too and the privacy and security implications of that?
Yeah, so server side introduces a very interesting problem. On one hand, it's like server side is good in the sense that it really, in terms of site speed and page load, any of the marketing pixels that you have, so your floodlights, your Facebook pixels, LinkedIn, Trade Desk, all of that stuff, what you can do to improve your site performance is take all of that off, your web GTM deployment and stick that into GTM server side. So effectively what happens is when your page loads, GTM, your normal GTM web will load, then you'll set up a tag to fire off a payload into GTM server side. So that could be through Google Analytics, for example. Let's say we're tracking an e-commerce purchase and we're sending all that data into GTM server side. Then what you can do within GTM server side is you can create a client event. And then once you have that client set up, you can then create multiple tags that piggyback the information from what's been passed from the GTM web. And so in this case, using the purchase example, I can say, okay, cool. GTM server has received this payload of e-commerce data now that I've received this payload, I want to send that off to Google Analytics. But at the same time, now I can say, okay, cool. I want to track this into Facebook. I want to track this into Floodlight. I want to track this into like whatever tag or vendor that you're passing the data to. But one of the main differentiating factors is that this happens on the server side. As far as the web browser is concerned, it doesn't process any of that. And that introduces a unique problem because like one of the main challenges a lot of vendors have right now, and Simon alluded to this earlier, is people run ad blockers. Like people like myself, for example, I hate getting ads. So I put an ad blocker, I block myself from getting tracked as much as possible. But with server-side GTM, that if you can effectively bypass those like users that have ad blockers, but then this introduces a new problem, particularly with like European Union, because now like you have ad blockers that's unable to detect like how your data is used. You then have the layer of consent management on top of that. So that's another layer that organizations really need to play a part of, like really need to focus and pay attention on.
And do you find organizations are pushing the envelope with that? Like, are they going, oh, cool, I can get around this now?
So,
or are they saying, oh, yeah, this is great for customers and their privacy?
So what I found and what we found of our clients that we're working on now, Australian clients, not so much. Like we don't have, well, right now, I should say, Australia, we don't have legislation that governs how data is used, although like with upcoming changes to privacy legislation in about 2 years, that is something that organizations within Australia should really start considering as well. But what we find with like our European like clients, like they're very on the board, like, hey, I don't want to get fined for mismanaging my data. So like what we found is like, particularly in the Australian market, we're still very lax because we don't have those legislations in place at the moment.
Thank you. So a question for anyone who wants to take this. So I think it's, the end of June next year for people who don't pay currently and a few months after for paid clients. And then you'll have access for your data and then it was gone. Are you finding that clients are really care about that? Are people obsessed about year-on-year financial year data, which is, the Australian financial year? Or do you think it's one of those things like people will be obsessed about and then a couple of months later they're just not going to care?
Yeah, there is a lot of concern that clients normally express, especially to have their existing data saved, and they even going to the lens as to collect everything for as long as they've been collecting data in UA. However, we obviously advise clients against doing that because A, they might not really need the data, and all they're looking for at the end of the day is some sort of a comparison to, hey, if I had revenue in fiscal year 2022, so how does that compare with 3 years ago, for example? So that is the kind of data that they ideally could either take an export out of Universal Analytics or like put it somewhere in Tableau or any other BI tool of their choice. But what we really advise our clients to do is build some sort of a migration plan in terms of what data is worth saving, and not to go too crazy on like saving page view level data or event level data, which it's tempting to do that, especially if you've been collecting data for 10 or 20 years. But yeah, let's be a bit more wiser about what is practical to save and what is worth saving.
Great. Does anyone else have any comments on that one?
That was pretty comprehensive. The only thing I would like to add also is, so for GA360, the paid version, you would obviously still have all your historical data in DQ. And then for like the ones that are on the free versions, yeah, I totally agree that most clients have been just looking at like the aggregated totals, because not looking at, for like reporting purposes, you're just looking on like a monthly performance. You're not actually looking at like, what an individual user is doing on a particular visit. So it's just identifying what is the key metrics that you want to report on a year basis.
Great, great. Now I'm wondering, Josh, do we have time for questions? Because I have one or two more, but I actually think there's probably going to be quite a few questions from the audience. So yeah, let's open it up to the floor. And does anyone have any questions for the panel? Yes, I can run around with the mic. So if people stick your hand up, I will come find you. Yes, okay, hang on. Here I come.
I would like to know, Google Analytics, how much of the market share they have. So we would like to have idea how many of the people use it, so have idea what is going on.
Does anyone from the panel have a bit of an idea? A lot?
Depends who you ask. It's true, like depending on who you ask, the answer is different, but it's a significant portion, I think, out of the current like analytics software. It is like a major player, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my experience, you know, you've got the big, really big enterprise companies who might use some of the other paid tools, but because the standard version is free, it's just about almost every business company online probably had GA on there at some point in time, and it's only if they've actually made an active decision to do something else that they've moved. I mean, that's my experience on that. Yeah. 11 million sites. I figure it's on more than that. It'd have to be on more than that.
Does Google tell you how much footprint Google has?
I'm sure. I think Google has a big foot. So.
I'm sure you could use it for like build to get a report.
Yeah, I would say it's a lot, most of them, you know, that's what I would think. Does somebody else have a question? Yep, great.
Thank you. I'll be losing some customers because they don't want to be migrating from GA3 to GA4. What's the best alternative if we don't have to talk about Google all night?
Well, there is Adobe, of course, always the alternative. But in terms of some of the lesser known platforms, one of them that I came across recently, I was reading about it, is Matomo. I don't know if you've heard the name. They do claim to be more privacy aware and compliant to privacy laws than GA4 is. I've done a bit of reading on the features, and they seem to closely mirror the features that they have on the UA side of things. So, and they do have a free plan for that as well. And you are able to also host the solution on your own servers if you so wish. So it might be worth having a look there.
Any more questions? Very quiet, very quiet. A question I had then for the audience, who is currently using Google Analytics, either with their clients or with their... That's a pretty big market share there, I reckon. Who has fully transitioned to GA4 and is not using Universal Analytics? One person. Who is on that transition journey? Okay, so I'd love to hear someone from the audience. How have you gone about convincing, let's just say, management internally to do this? What have you pitched as the advantage to move to GA4? Does anyone want to share that? Yeah, hang on, coming.
Hey, so Google kind of forced us to use it because it's going to sunset in a year, right? So we want to build some year-to-year reports, month-to-month reports. So we have to do this transition. So in terms of like being nice with the words, we obviously said, look, our report's going to crash. If you want to see the comparison, can we please start doing this? And another one was around the BigQuery. So because now we can export the data to BigQuery, and I'm working with an agency, and obviously we are using like many different platforms. So BigQuery helps us to build those reports without any heavy load. So BigQuery was another bit that was helpful with our pitches.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else want to share their story? I mean, I would think that moving to GA4 is a great opportunity to reassess your implementation as, sorry, let me get back here. As, you know, as everyone knows, current Google Analytics is page views and events, right? And the web's just not like that anymore. Apps are not like that at all. So how many people who have moved or transitioning to GA4 have like really sat down and decided to completely re-architect their data capture? Ooh, not as many people as I hoped. Because I think that's probably one of the big advantages or the big selling point to use that rather than saying, well, yeah, we have to, which is obviously true, but not really going to get you anything at the other end. Anyone from the panel want to talk about sort of why? I mean, I know one you have before, but maybe some of the agency guys around ways you've tried to convince clients past, well, you have to.
Yeah, so one of the things that is quite obvious in GA4 is, especially if you're talking about custom dimensions, during our migration plans for most clients, we find that a lot of custom dimensions are either session scoped or product scoped, which just is a way of measuring attributes that are specific to a session or product. A lot of, and these, by the way, do not exist in GA4 yet, although Google do say that they are working on them and will be available on the platform. But this is a great way for actually us to start a conversation with clients, say that maybe in terms of the new platform, given that you're no longer measuring sessions or hits, you can see you structure some of your data collection, which are more natural and in line with how users interact. So for example, when you so going back to the conversion rate example, sessions don't actually buy stuff, users do. So if you were to like restructure your event and data collection around users rather than sessions, which isn't really an authentic kind of measurement idea anyways, you would end up with better metrics as well as reporting.
Anyone?
So something that's one of our clients is in the position of is they've been on Google like Universal Analytics for many years, and there's a lot of history in there. But in addition to that history, there's a lot of weird things in there, and
so baggage, really, GA baggage.
Yeah, a lot of GA baggage. And essentially, one thing that for those particular clients, particularly when the stakeholders have turned over quite frequently, there's a lot of history in there. A lot of it doesn't make sense. A lot of it's may not be useful anymore. One advantage for all clients right now that's in this position that they need to, or either upgrade to GA4, or if they want to look at an alternate path, is this is the opportunity where you can come in with a fresh slate, reevaluate your measurement plan, re-architect your tracking implementation, and get it up the ground running again, brand new as a fresh slate, because that's essentially what GA4 is going to be once it's up and running.
Right.
Yeah, okay, yeah, cool. Just thinking. Yeah, so so it's definitely an opportunity for like a lot of our clients. So there is a lot of scary skeletons in the closet that you know exist, but you don't want to look there. And this is really an opportunity. It's a really easy way, I guess, to influence like the stakeholders within an organization to actually do something about cleaning up, you know, the data layer or like the base foundation. Just because you can basically say like you need to re-implement the data layer for GA4, or you can reuse your existing one, and we kind of do the work in GTM for you. And it's really important to just recognize like where the GA4 rollout fits in within like an organization's strategic. So it's just one small piece of your analytics measurement. But as long as you get that, you know, base foundation correct in the data layer, there's basically a whole bunch of possibilities you can do with it. And then so with GA4 rollouts, I think the most important thing is really planning and documenting, and as Jason has mentioned, having a really clear measurement plan. So in Universal Analytics, you obviously got all your legacy events that are, you know, category, action, and label. You basically need to map that in a very clear and defined way in GA4, especially with the limitations of like, you know, 500 distinct event names. But it's a really good opportunity to like not only make your tracking consistent and standardized, because you can clean up a lot of that junk and technical debt. But if you have like, for example, some of our clients, for example, have multiple regions who all run a different or slightly different implementation of you know, Universal Analytics. And this is like a really good opportunity to like, you know, get in there and standardize it across the globe.
Great, thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just reiterate. So we did do that as well. We went through, we audited everything, and there was a lot of crap in there, things that weren't being used, things from way back when, because people leave, people come and go, they leave. So you do need help going through all of that. And it's another way to engage or re-engage the business to get on board with what you're trying to do. I have a question for you guys. So after you've rolled out GA4, what happens next? How do you leave the business? So, you know, people like my teams, you've documented it, no one understands it because someone brought in the agency to do the work and went, here you go, here's the big book, see you later. Or are you finding, you know, it's such a change, they're keeping you on retainer? How do you then upskill the people in the business?
Still on the journey, we'll let you know.
So so there's obviously the implementation bit. And then once you implement is like, you know, how do you get actual users within an organization using it? So the way that we've kind of approached it is we basically do like actual training workshops, basically stepping through from like, you know, what GA4 is, like from a very high level, like tonight, into like actual practical usages of it. And then, you know, asking like, you know, for those stakeholders, like, you know, what are your use cases of GA4? And then you basically provide them with playbooks. And in bigger organizations, it's all about scalability. So for example, a lot of our training workshops, even though they may be delivered in person to just 1 or 2 teams or like a small group of people, we usually have them recorded. And then that gets rolled out across the entire organization. So that's replicable and you don't have to go into like, you know, 10 different training workshops with 10 different regions. Yeah.
Yeah, so the way that we normally do it is once you've been through the ugly bits, which is the GM4 implementation, it's actually the fun part to begin, which is actually your real use cases. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to get out of your campaigns? How do you want to reach your audiences? How do you want to personalize? So one of the really good things that GA4 has done is with its audiences in the way as you can actually do a lot more. And the way the events are actually tied into the audiences is you can play with it in a few unique ways, which lends in quite well to personalization. So I can actually fire events from the time that somebody actually becomes an audience member, and I can use that to retarget them, not through the traditional meaning of retargeting, which is kind of going away, but to kind of personalize for audiences in real time, maybe show them a more bespoke message, because I know they've come from a specific campaign that I'm running on Google Ads or Facebook. These are some of the interesting use cases. So we ask our clients, how would you like to use the data that you're collecting? And more often than less, what we're finding is people actually don't have any idea.
Right. And I guess something that I've kind of like prefaced to with all my clients before we even start is basically don't compare Universal Analytics with Google Analytics 4, just because there's a 99% chance that you'll say you don't like GA4. Like that's just from experience. But like, it's basically comparing apples to oranges. Like GA4 is a completely different beast. And like it may look like if you're used to the UA interface and you've been using it for 5 years, you're probably not going to like the GA4 one. But once you keep an open mind and you actually start using the GA4 platform, you will notice that a lot of the UI is actually quite more simplified than the UA one. So for example, in the UA one, there's like 1,000 tabs on that left nav, but like how many actually do you actually use? And then on the GA4 side, like it makes logical sense of how they break the reports up. So you got your acquisition, which is how you first acquire a user or customer. You have your engagement. So like, you know, once I've got this customer on my website, how are they interacting and engaging with your site? And then that flows onto your, like, you know, how do you monetize them? So how do you make them, you know, make a purchase and what's that revenue that's generated? And then following that, how do you make them return? So retention reports. And I think it makes logical sense. And once you've been through 1 or 2 of those reports, you'll notice that they are basically all structured the same. It's always a line graph at the top, has a little table. You can add a secondary dimension, and then you can build comparisons on the right. Like it's a pretty basic UI, to be honest. It just looks very different to UA. And that is what spooks people, I guess.
I do have a bone to pick with the attribution models under advertising though, which I mean, if you don't advertise, you still have attribution. So that's a bit of a weird naming choice. I think it might change though in the future.
Right, now I think we're probably wrapping up, but I actually was going to ask each panelist to give the one main consideration that people should think about for GA4. Now, I think you've all probably done that throughout this talk, but is there any final comments that people have for the panelists have for the audience around what they should really be thinking about when they move to GA4, or move in another way, move off current Google Analytics. And maybe we'll just go down the line and start with you, Tariq.
So obviously just revisit your data collection, and also with the lens of privacy. So, and your consent management and your data consolidation should matter a lot, not just from in terms of like what you're collecting, but also which platforms are you collecting today. So if you have experiences that are across the web, on app, you should really look at kind of, this is a great opportunity for you to kind of consolidate and make everything consistent. So back in the days where in Universal Analytics, you had the apps on a different kind of tracking mechanism, you had the web tracking things differently. So this is really a very good opportunity to kind of consolidate and unify everything and report in a consistent manner. So if you haven't done that, or if you're in the process of doing that, take as much time that you need to kind of like make that long lasting.
Great, thanks. Juan, any key tip that you would recommend?
Yep, so if you're thinking you're going to stick with GA and you need to move, turn it on so you can get year on year. That's a hot tip. So for the university, it's very seasonal. It's not month by month. We're only recently into e-commerce. The way students come through university, you know, you've got the peak at the start, everyone's studying, or people are looking after their HSC results come out. So we need year on year, turn it on and get help, I would say. So we're a small team, 2 analytics specialists, we would say, within the business, and then 30, maybe 50, maybe 70 people who use it. And the big change from GA3, I think, you can go in and browse a lot, can be good, can be bad, depending on who you give access to. GA4, I think you have this opportunity to really ask people, like Tariq was saying, what are you actually trying to measure? What are you trying to do here? And let's sit down. My approach was straight to dashboarding. So I didn't go through, I was trying to, you know, marry them in my head together. What's changed, what's different? How am I going to use it quickly and send it to the business? It was releasing dashboards, because then you get to have that conversation. What are you actually trying to do? You don't want someone coming going, look at these bounce rates. People go, well, what does that mean to you? We're like, let's look at the page, let's look at the content. So we took that as an opportunity to re-educate the business on success criteria for what they're actually trying to achieve. So we chose our agency, we went through a thorough process, we worked with Louder, they were really good. So we felt really lucky there. Do your work, go to market, know what you really want out of it, choose the right agency. A big tip. And have someone on the business side be on the ball with the agency the whole time. You cannot send money off and think it's going to work. You need at least one person. More would be better, but you need the business invested in it.
Thanks. John, final tip?
Okay, so in UA, you got event category, action, and labels. Don't just make 3 parameters in GA4 called category, action, and label and map it directly across. That is not a GA4 rollout or migration. You may laugh, but some clients actually want that. Yeah. But yeah, in all seriousness, so like GA4 rollouts, I don't think implementation is the hardest thing about it. So the hardest thing about GA4 rollout is really just having a really good planning in place. So that's before you start GA4, you have to decide, are we going to migrate all our existing and legacy events into a new structure of GA4? Or do we want to start from the ground up and start from scratch, which is other option is fine. And then once you've kind of decided which approach you want to take, you also need to decide, okay, are we going to get the developers to re-implement the data to use like a GA4 format, which is more like robust, I guess, for like future? Or do we just keep that universal analytics data in there, but we'll use like in a GTM and remap it into a J4 format? So that's just like a another consideration. Like there's pros and cons to both, just depending on how much resources the organization has, I guess. And then obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you need to have a really clear mapping of how all the data is going to be structured. Just because with the flexible data model in J4, you can't really just create random events. You basically need to plan out so that's all consistent. And then final tip is have an adoption plan in place. So once you've implemented it, how do you roll it out to all the other different teams and all the other stakeholders in the business so that they can actually get value out of the product?
Great, thanks, John. And finally, Jason, hot tips?
My key takeaway is this is now a really good time to really evaluate what you want to collect. There's not going to be another moment once GA4 is now mainstream. You have this opportunity to really plan out what your measurement implementation will look like. Do that first. Once you have all that sorted, then go through and implement GA4. Like, it's all well and good to say, let's just put GA4 down and track all the things, but is that really useful? And that's my main takeaway, is really think about what you want to get out of GA4 and implement the important things and not just all the vanity metrics, if you will.
GA baggage. Okay.
GA baggage, yeah, great. All right, thank you. So I think we're all hearing loud and clear that this is a point in time that you can really rethink what you're capturing and don't just copy what you have currently in Google Analytics and just try and make it fit GA4. Take a step back and think about what you want to do.
And if you really like bounce rate, it's coming back. So
I hate bounce rate, so no. So can you join me in thanking our panelists today, Tariq, Oanh, Jonathon and Jason? I'm not sure what happens now, so I'm going to hand over to Josh.
Thanks, guys. Another big round of applause for these guys. Thanks very much. This is part of why I love these events as well. Obviously, there's so much experience between these guys. It's great to get everyone together, and I hope you guys all learned something about GA4. It sounds like the resounding sort of message is, it's a really good time to just evaluate what you actually want, spend the time to actually know what you want, just do a bit of planning and, assess what options you have and that sort of stuff before you jump in. But yeah, hope you guys all enjoyed that. So we do have a few more things that we'll finish off with. So usually what we end with is we do an open mic. So if you have an announcement, a quick rant, if you're looking for a job or you're hiring people, this is the time to get up. You got 2 minutes, you can announce something or share something. So yeah, anyone have anything they want to share and get up? Oh yeah, no more GA4 words apparently. Yeah, Mo?
Hi, Mo Kiss from Canva. We're actually going to be advertising really soon specifically for senior marketing analyst. We'll need Python or R and SQL skills that are very, very good and also very extensive experience in marketing. So just hit me up on Measure Slack or chat to me if you're interested.
And as you've all seen, they've got some awesome perks as well. Free beer on tap. Oh yeah, sorry.
So not a rant, but we are hiring at Jellyfish for 2 analytics specialists. So if you're interested in that, do come and let me know. The not so great part is you're going to be working on GA4 as well.
Awesome. Anyone else? Yep, we've got one down the middle.
Hi, I'm Ian from Louder. More jobs. So we're looking for analysts and data engineers. So find me on louder.com.au.
Chris from Civic Data. We are about to list a whole lot of jobs, but specifically around clean rooms and data collaboration. So if that's something you're interested in, if you could just follow us on Civic Data on LinkedIn, that'd be great. Thank you. Guys, that was amazing. Thank you. I actually learned a lot. That was really great. Thank you.
Awesome. Anyone else? Oh, we've got one down the back.
So I'm Doug Abdiel. I work at Google. Thank you for all the kind things you're saying about our new. In all seriousness, I'm heading back to the head shed next week. And what quite often happens is we don't think about a market the size of Texas when we're considering commercial models and putting them out. If there are any risks, be it partner or reseller risks or end client risks that you're seeing as you migrate to GA4, I would very much love, and I'll just say my email address out. I hope you can copy it down or I'll do whatever else. Flick them over to me. I'd love to hear them. It's douglasabdiel@google.com. And I will try and get them into our product manager's ears next Friday before we do anything too stupid.
Awesome. Anyone else got anything to share?
Angus, nothing.
I do have some stuff as well. So obviously, like some of us actually run these events just because we're obviously quite passionate about this. It's a pretty cool event, right? Like I'm a little bit biased, but I thought tonight was pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean, we've been doing this for a while. If you guys want to get involved, it's a pretty cool community. So yeah, just come up and chat to one of us, anyone who's got a lanyard. Yeah, we'd love for you to get involved. We actually have an association. There's a bunch of us, and we all kind of share the load and that sort of stuff. But yeah, we're all just super passionate. And part of the reason why we do it is like, we've learned so much through these events as well. And so, you know, it's kind of cool to be involved and kind of give back as well. So yeah, awesome. We did have another thing, is small multiples around? Don't know. I think they were going to get up and do an open mic on this, but if not.
Oh, that was me.
Oh yeah, Simon. Yeah.
So,
do you want to jump in?
you can hear me, I take it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just a really cool project from our friends at Small Multiples. They've done this Census Explorer. I just think you should go and check it out. There's a URL there, or if you just type Census Explorer SBS into Google, you'll get it. It's just a really awesome visualization of how the census data, what the census data exposes about who we are, what languages we speak, where we come from, all of that kind of stuff. It's really cool. So check it out.
Yeah, I was having a bit of a look before, and it's actually super cool. I was like comparing demographics across different suburbs in Sydney, all that sort of thing. So yeah, really, really cool. So check it out. Awesome. So we don't just run events once a month. We also run a unconference once a year. It's called Measurecamp. So basically we run it on a Saturday. So you generally just get people who are super passionate, who are willing to give up a Saturday to come and talk and share ideas. We're going to be holding it at Google, I think. Yeah, on the 22nd of October. So put it in the calendars. Even for the people in like overseas, sometimes we get people from New Zealand or interstate. Ends up being like a really good day where people just are super passionate about this space. We just share some cool stuff we've been working on. We have like a bit of a party afterwards, some prizes, all that sort of stuff. So it's coming up in October, so save the date. Yeah, and if you want to get involved in organizing it and that sort of stuff, also come up and chat to us. Yeah.
It's free.
Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, these guys have been really awesome in sharing some really good learnings and experience and stuff, but we also want to hear from you guys too. So even if you've just seen something really interesting or something you just hated, it's like a massive bugbear, or something, yeah, just super cool. You've seen someone else do something really cool or just out in the market, and we want to hear about it. So, you know, this community is really about like sharing cool ideas with each other. So yeah, don't be shy, come and have a chat to us. There's a few ways to get in contact with us as well. So you can go to the website and, you know, chat to us, but I might jump to the next slide. So there are a few other ways to get in touch as well. Obviously you can go to the website. We've got a Twitter handle. Simon's probably ecstatic that the QR code has finally come back. He had this on for about 8 years and no one was using it. I think he had like 3 people use it. So yeah, you can use the QR code. But the one that I really enjoy as well, and you know, it's been really good to connect with the community, is actually the Measure chat. So I really highly recommend downloading it if you aren't already on it. So join.measure.chat. It's basically a Slack channel, so we can all chat with our peers, and even if you have a problem and you want to share it and just be like, hey, I really don't know how to solve this, you can share it not just locally, but with analytics experts all around the world. So it's been a really cool way to connect with people. I think even like some of the experts in like San Fran and stuff, you could just ping them and then just get an answer on some stuff. So it's really cool. And as you could probably already tell, like the community is really good. Everyone just wants to help each other. So definitely recommend joining it, and yeah, definitely stay in touch. And then, yeah, we'll see you next month. I hope you guys enjoyed it. The only final thing that I'll ask of you is Canva's actually, you know, they've really kindly given us the space. They do this every month. It's like, it's not really any major benefit to them, but, you know, they just want to help us out. So if you guys have like eaten some food or you have some stuff around, just help us clean up a little bit. There's a kitchen down the end. So just on your way out, just take your stuff out. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, really excited to have so many people here. It's been an awesome night.